Hey everyone, it's the Shawn. Welcome to another edition of the Influencer of Tomorrow, where alongside my co-host George Hendley, we talk to people who are impacting today's world, but also building to be influencers of tomorrow. So today we're talking to Debbie Hoffman, who has jumped deep into the blockchain world. She's out speaking a lot. She's really making a big impact on the future of business and the future of technology. She has a consulting practice based off that. We'll talk a little bit about that, her background. We're also going to talk about kind of what she's doing now and what she's building for tomorrow. For those of you that don't tune in as often, my co-host George Hendley, longtime speaking coach, works with people on building their influences and building their business. I'm the Shawn. I'm a corporate lawyer by training. I help people with ownership and control of their business. And that also brings me into doing some business consulting, business strategy work, and speaking about how do you build your business. How do you make business plans for the future? That's our worlds. George and I came together and started reaching out to influencers and saying, well, let's hear what you're doing. Let's hear what you're doing for tomorrow so other influencers can learn from them, and the people that want to build influence-based businesses can also learn the lessons from these sessions. So that's our goal. We're glad you're joining us today. We love your comments, so drop them wherever you're watching. You might be picking this up on your LinkedIn feed. You might be seeing it over on Facebook. You might be picking it up on the Influencer of Tomorrow YouTube channel. Wherever you're seeing it, we welcome your comments. We will read them. We look for guests in the comments if you have particularly insightful ideas or suggestions. We also look for future contents and ideas from those comments. So drop them there. We don't do legal advice or any investment advice on the show. Everything here is just about building your influence, thinking about tomorrow, and giving you some educational ideas that you can use for your impact. With that, welcome to the show, Debbie. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Shawn and George. I look forward to our conversation.
Yes, a lot of fun. I got to know you primarily, I guess, LinkedIn. We had some mutual connections and friends in the blockchain future business community. But
Right.
You're out there all throughout this world, right? You host events in the Orlando area. You get called around the country and I guess globally or some international to speak about blockchain, the future of business. Why don't you just give us a background, kind of how did you get from where you are to where you've gotten to, and then we'll move into the future a little bit later in the show.
Yeah, it's interesting. I do get asked that question quite a bit. And part of it is really taking the initiative to I'll talk generally, just look at an industry, because I've done, we're talking about blockchain, but you can really do this in much greater than just the blockchain industry. You look at the industry and you look at who are the market movers, where are the people that are the leaders of this industry meeting, they going. So you have to look at them live, you look at them online, and I follow that all the time. So every day you're kind of just paying attention to what's going on in the industry, who are the leaders, who are they talking to, where are they being published, and you just look at all of it's a marketing thing more than anything else.
Right. So you started following this industry, paying closer attention to it. You have a background as a lawyer like myself, but you've kind of moved more into the consulting and that piece of it.
Yes.
So this was kind of an intentional mapped effort on your part. Is that what I'm picking up from what we're seeing?
Well, I think some people, it is an intentional effort. I think that it's just also to some degree, it's who you are, who you can make what habits you get yourself into playing. So in my whole career, I can't say this is just a sudden thing. I've always, and when it was in law, I would pay attention to, what my industry in particular, or after that, I did a lot in financial services. So it's paying attention to what's going on in your industry, who are the leaders. And again, it's just, and what are they talking about? Where are they talking? So yes, it's an intentional effort, but it's always been an intentional effort in my career.
Right. So you've said, okay, I want you've found a passion for blockchain, I think, like I have, and you've decided to say, let's get out there and let's be part of the conversation.
Correct. And a lot of that, I think, I have the luxury of being able to go and hear some of the conversation. So I live in Orlando, Florida. I love Orlando, Florida, but I think a lot of the conversations begin in San Francisco and to some degree in New York around blockchain. So I intentionally, at the beginning, especially when I started this career in blockchain, I would make an effort to go to San Francisco, because you're sitting in a cab in San Francisco talking to somebody about blockchain, and in Orlando, when I sit in a shared Uber or Lyft, the person's never heard of blockchain. So you need to put yourself in those situations.
Right. Okay. So a lot of exposure has been a part of this. And so you're collecting pieces, it sounds like, right? So part of this is I want to be around people who are talking about blockchain. I want to be part of conversation with blockchain, and you're looking for connections to build to where you're going.
Absolutely. And again, the part of it, and that's because the role is to become an expert, you need to be a part of the conversation and then be able to bring that conversation to the people that haven't had the opportunity to be a part of the conversation, right? That's the whole concept. So you need the good mix. If you're always with the same people that are experts, then you're never going to be able to share your expertise. So it's a combination of both.
Yep. So you're mixing opportunities, and you've found opportunities throughout the globe. I mean, I watch your LinkedIn, and you're traveling to various conferences. You're going different places, right? How do those pieces kind of come together?
Yeah. So again, I follow, and I just looked. It's 2019, so it's a good time to look at your calendar and say, okay, what's going on this year? What has been scheduled? And you kind of look at the events. You can figure out there's events listed or webinars, and you follow a lot of different types of experts within an industry, and you don't know which necessarily you don't know where the right group of expertise is going to go. So I don't know if in November necessarily what's going to be the hot topic, but you can at least kind of lay out a game plan as what looks like these might be opportunities. I always block out calendar time and say, oh, this is going on, and this is something I might want to attend in November. I don't know, but at least for the time being. And you're watching the market. So you can kind of plan ahead to some degree and have ideas of what's going on. And at least even webinars, I'll placehold them on my calendar. Oh, this looks like something interesting that I should listen to. And so that way you're not blocking over times that you think are really important for you to get out there.
Gotcha. So, okay. So it's a kind of planned effort with listening to market feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. No question.
George, what are you thinking over there?
Well, I feel like I'm in kindergarten or first grade when it comes to blockchain. I have done a tiny bit of research. I recognize someone said that they think the originator of blockchain, or at least that terminology, sounded like a Japanese guy or an entity with a Japanese name.
Satoshi Nakamoto.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. But bottom line, I'm still thinking, how does this relate to the everyday person who's especially not into the Bitcoin world? Yeah. I'm not into that Bitcoin world yet, but I'm still very interested in blockchain. Can you speak to that more, Debbie?
In a piece, yes. So it's really not that difficult. Blockchain is the technology on which Bitcoin was built. Mm-hmm. And in everyday use, it is as simple as it's a ledger where you can store and transfer data. And the ledger, instead of being stored on one server, it's stored on what's called a distributed group of computers. So that if your one server goes down and you have one backup and that goes down, it's okay, because you are it could be hundreds, it can be thousands. And there are characteristics of this technology, such as the fact that it's immutable, you can't erase what's put on it, that it is a game changer in almost every industry. So it's an incredibly powerful technology that has gained traction, to some degree because of Bitcoin, but more importantly, because of how it can transform industries because of its characteristics.
Okay.
Start.
It's a change of information flow. That's the way I like to think of it. I come at it as an accountant. That's kind of what originally got me excited about it, because it's a new way of recording stuff.
Right.
That just should open up whole new possibilities, and, Debbie mentioned the fact you have it as distributed ledger, the immutability. It makes it very hard for somebody to commit fraud, because you have to commit fraud over 50, 100, hundreds of computers simultaneously. So it's very hard to change records in this world. So it will change the world of audit. Somebody said 97% of auditors are going to lose their jobs in the next 10 years. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. That's the kind of shocking changes that are possible with this technology.
Right. And I'm coming at it from a lawyer and from somebody who's been in mortgage finance a good portion of my career, most of my career. And when you look at those characteristics of immutability and auditability, transparency, those are unbelievable characteristics to, the mortgage life cycle or the legal life cycle and the documentation of it. Yeah.
Yeah. It just fundamentally changes how things go. So you're a little bit different than some of our influencers, because not only are you've built influence now, you are a leader in the blockchain world, but you're also looking to the future, and you're building influence in an industry that's building influence.
Right. Which is a huge opportunity, frankly. I think that there are a lot of influencers that are may not have. The thing is, you really do need experience to be an influencer. And
Sure.
so luckily, with a legal and a financial background, I'm not a technology, I guess a technology expert is what I'm trying to say. And so there are blockchain experts out there who are fantastic and have the technology background. And I don't pretend that that's my expertise. My expertise, and you have to be clear about this as an influencer, is being able to bring the technology to the professionals and the executives who, like George was asking, I'm not saying like you, but the question that you were asking is, how do you bring technology to everyday professionals as opposed to just the IT professionals?
Right.
And I think that's been one of the challenges of blockchain, just as an aside, is, people hear about it, they Google a video, they might watch a YouTube video on blockchain, and most of those videos tend to be programmer oriented, right? Like, we're going to record on this ledger, we're going to do this, and it's got all these graphics of how everything's getting distributed among the computers. There's these things called hashes where they verify that the entries weren't modified. So there's a lot of technical stuff going on behind the scenes.
A lot.
One thing, like Debbie and I, our philosophy is let's start with the beginning and we'll move into the details as we need to.
Right.
A lot of people start with the details, and because they start with the details, they lose a lot of the audience.
That's right. So if you can be able, people always say to me, what is blockchain? I have to be able to talk to everyday people about what I do. I threw an event last year called Blockchain and Beers. And as we're getting ready for the event, the bartender said to me, well, what is blockchain? And I said, okay, I need to be able to, I knew that I needed to be able to explain it to, without having their eyes glaze over, what does this mean for you? So, yeah.
Well, and one guy, Samson Williams, who we've had on my other show.
Yeah.
Samson, I think he just calls it group text messaging. He's like, basically blockchain's like group text messaging, right? Like, once you send it, it goes on everybody's phone. Everybody knows that it's always there. You'll never get rid of all of the copies.
You won't, although I will caveat that, because again, when you get to mortgage finance, people are always like, oh, we can't have social security numbers in this group text message, or on a blockchain. So there are ways to privatize the information on there. I think that's an important point.
That's true. But then it becomes a definitional issue of what really is blockchain, which is a whole interesting other discussion, because part of the definition of blockchain is that it's recorded and everybody can see it. So interesting technical stuff. So, But Debbie, what do you see for the future? What do you see building for yourself? A little bit about the industry, but more about you. What are you planning, and how do you make plans as an influencer of today? How do you make plans for tomorrow?
I think that one of the most important things is you cannot get frustrated by the fact that it takes time, and not everybody is going to say, oh, I get this, and wow, this is amazing. Yes, I think it's amazing, and I have to have that passion inside of me and believe in it, because there are going to be people out there so I have a lot of lawyer colleagues who are like, oh, blockchain, it will never touch my industry. Are you kidding? I mean, there's huge amounts of, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity for blockchain to help in law, but a lot of lawyers don't yet see that. So as an influencer, sorry. But
I was going to put a story in here. I want you to resume, but there was a lawyer's listserv, and somebody got their computer hacked. They froze their data, and they were asking for cryptocurrency to release their files, right? One of these hacks. And one of the lawyers on this listserv, this is a listserv of lawyers, replied and says, why don't we just ban cryptocurrency?
Oh, for goodness sakes.
That was their answer to the fact that this hijacker was asking for cryptocurrency, was just ban all cryptocurrency.
And that's not the answer. So yeah, as an influencer, you have to know that, you have to believe in what you know. And I think I learned that from, I've taught at the University of Central Florida. And I remember when I first started to become, I was a professor, and I get these questions, and I would think, why don't I know the answer to these questions? And then as I got more experienced, I realized these questions don't make any sense to what I'm teaching. They're just completely off base, and it was the student that didn't understand and not me. And so as the influencer in a new area, you have to kind of know when you know your stuff, when there's a question that's so off base it doesn't really make sense. And that's just keeping the course,
Yeah, and I think the point you mentioned before is important for a lot of influencers, right? You don't have to know everything about a topic,
right,
to be an influencer. Blockchain being an example. You won't know everything about blockchain. You and I, we've talked. We don't know the programming side. We're not programmers. We know a little bit about it. We know the basics, but we don't understand that world fully.
right.
We understand the applications. We understand the impact on business. We understand the future of business.
Correct.
There might be medical doctors out there that are thinking about being an influencer. You might know your specialty. You might know hearts. You might know cardiology really well, but that doesn't mean that you understand, how to do an orthopedic surgery, right? So you don't have to know everything to be an influencer. And I think one of the things George taught me early on when I was learning how to be a speaker is people are going to ask you questions you don't know the answers to. Right. And there's a fallacy, I think, with new speakers that you have to know everything, right? If you're on stage, you have to know everything, but nobody knows everything.
No. Absolutely true.
And I think the point you've driven home here is, as an influencer, it's important to understand where your turf is and to also be able to let go and say, hey, that's not my turf,
Right. And one thing I do, I think a lot of us who are naturally curious, when somebody asks you a question, you realize it's a really valid question and you don't know the answer. The next thing you do is as soon as you get out of the situation, you go and you look up the question.
Sure.
And you ask your technology friends, wait, how does this work? Because I got to ask this question and I don't really understand. So it does bother you when you don't know it, but you look up the answer and you know it for the next time. So
right. Yeah. That's part of it. Yes. George?
Yeah, my curiosity is piqued, Debbie. I hear that you've been an academic of sorts, meaning that you've been teaching on the college level. I have a daughter that's a PhD. She teaches on the college level. I know the kinds of crazy questions that come up there. But bottom line, is your preference more for a verbal audio delivery or more for a written delivery in light of disseminating the important information that you have to disseminate? Or do you love kind of splitting it down the middle and doing some writing, some speaking, and a nice blend of both?
Right. That's a great question. So people who know me probably know the answer to that. So it's definitely both.
Okay.
But what drives me to the speaking is if I'm interested in something, I will write a short or not a long piece about it. I try not to get bogged down to a 50-piece article, but a short enough article where I dive into a topic, and then I'm able to go and intelligently talk about it because I've done the writing on it and it's in my head. And you can do it the opposite way too, but I do think it really helps drive me. So right now I'm writing a piece, and those of us in blockchain, this is a piece of cake, you're going to laugh, Shawn, but it's on identity in blockchain. Mm-hmm. And I'm taking that to the next level of identity in blockchain and how that can transform into, of course, the mortgage lending process. And so I have all these thoughts about it and how it works, but once I write this piece, I should be able to get up and speak for 30 minutes about it, no problem. But I need the writing to kind of help me formulate my thoughts.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're very systematic in your thinking, and you want to have sort of a longer picture of information in your mind already before you stand up and kind of do the blah, 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 blah.
I mean, generally, and then there are times when you're asked to speak on a topic where I don't have the time to write about it first, and I'll go, and so you do that too. But it's definitely more challenging when you haven't done the writing or the research. For me, anyway, to do have done a little bit of research behind it. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Smart way to go.
And I think you've kind of answered the question here, but speak to a little bit about, there's some speakers out there that will speak on the same topic, same speech every time, and it's almost like a theatrical production. versus you're an expert, you have great knowledge, and it sounds like you'll tailor a little bit. Somebody says, well, I want to hear about blockchain for identity. I want to hear about blockchain for mortgage industry. It sounds like you listen a little bit to what the programs want, and then you're going to tailor your program.
Yeah, and it's also, we're lucky to be in a very changing, blockchain is changing constantly, and you will get stale if you keep on that same topic that you spoke about a year ago. If you're to January of 2018, ICOs and what the SEC was saying about ICOs, that was the hot topic. And that's not the hot topic January 2019. So we have to be changing. There are industries where that's probably not as relevant, that you can get away with being and when I say get away with, I actually think it's a great, as a professor, when I taught from semester 1 to the time I got to the fall, by the time I got to the summer, I had perfected things. So you do perfect things in your performance, but we're an industry where we can't really do that. We need to change it and be relevant.
Right. And you're going to listen, and your programs, how often would you repeat a program? Sounds like maybe elements of it will repeat, but most of a lot of it's going to be adjusted.
No, there are repeats depending on the audience. So if I have an executive team that wants to learn about blockchain, it's Blockchain 101. Blockchain 101 isn't changing that much, really. Okay. It's really the shoot-offs from Blockchain 101 where we need to get a little more, deeper into what the climate is. Yeah. For instance, the regulatory climate, it's changed a little bit. And so we have to keep up with that. That changes. There are elements of it, though, that you still need to be able to go back to 101.
Right. And the international piece of this I find fascinating myself, and that's changing, regularly because different countries are jumping in, and I see it as international competition. I don't know if the U.S. government sees it as international competition. That's always one of my points on LinkedIn is like, we're in a competition and nobody's.
We are. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm hopeful. I try to be a positive person. I do think that there are people at the regulatory level that understand it and are working on it. The question is, how fast is that implementation going to happen? And we see it at the state level being addressed quicker than at the federal level, but I'm optimistic that there are people in federal government agencies that really do understand how important this is.
Right. Yeah. And let's talk a little bit about that too, because that's an interesting aside. How do you, as an influencer in the private sphere, right? So, you have some academic background, but you're largely working with private industry, consulting with private companies. How do you interface with kind of this broader public policy and things that are impacting your world, and how do you balance that?
I would not consider myself a lobbyist by any means, but and in this industry, you have to kind of pick, in any industry, you have to kind of pick and choose your battles and where you want to focus your efforts. So I definitely keep up on everything that's going on in terms of the movement. There's many people that Shawn, you and I know that are bigger influencers as far as the government and the movements there. Caitlin Long, for example, somebody like that who really makes a difference. I think we could use more people like that. So I was just having a conversation with somebody today about Delaware. Delaware's made some strides, but now all of a sudden we're kind of seeing Wyoming, Ohio, even, a few other states kind of leap. And so I don't know, I could be wrong, but I don't know that anybody's taking the lead in Delaware to keep up. And so is Delaware going to end up being behind? So I'm not the influencer as far as in government or in something like that, but I think it's important to follow and know what's going on.
Yeah, I find the state competition fascinating, and it impacts us long term. So you kind of got to pick how much you want to try to influence the process that's going to influence your future, right?
Right.
Yeah. George?
Yeah, I was curious, looking 6 months, 12 months down the road, where do you see yourself at that point in light of your role as an influencer in the bigger picture of the country, the world, and specifically, again, in the arena of blockchain?
It's hard to predict. So one of my mottos is not just to get too daunted by bigger goals down the road, because I think we all have bigger goals. So I'm continuing to do what I'm doing and pick and choose the areas where I think I can make a difference, and pick and choose which clients I work with to help them through their education and strategy. And again, I have focused on a few areas in industries to put my effort. So I think that a year down the road, I would really like to be able to say we are going to see some huge changes in industries as far as blockchain, and more than just, there's a few protocols going on here and there that people have maybe heard of. So I'm not sure I can give you an exact answer, but that's probably the closest I can give.
Okay.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, any other thoughts about influencing and building influence that we didn't ask you about today, Debbie? Anything that percolates on your mind?
Yeah, so I get asked the question a lot about what do I do? How do I start? And I think it's really important for people to understand you don't always have to go out and travel. You can write, and you can get out to a huge audience by writing. And people for some reason are scared. It doesn't have to be a 50-page article. It can be 1,200 words, and submit it. Start it with your own blog. You can go to local meetups. You can talk to people and get to be known in your own community. You can go on the groups virtually. There's just so many places. And so just like I just said, the answer to the question about 12 months from now, don't think about 12 months from now. Think about what's ahead of you this month. One goal this month to try and how can I influence my community, and how can I get out to my community about my expertise.
Okay. Step at a time. So so I guess you have goals, you have long range visions, but you're not caught up on those every moment.
Correct. I think that's too daunting. I think that's when people say, it's just like building a blockchain for the world. We're not there yet. Bit by bit by bit. So,
yep. Yeah. Very good. George, you have a final question?
No, I really don't. I just want to say thank you, Debbie. This has been educational for me. I know I still have a lot to learn, but I'm going to stay in tune with Shawn and the things that he's doing, because he's kind of my go-to guy in this world of the unknown of blockchain. But now I'm glad I've got you to watch and listen to as well. And I look forward to seeing your face and your post on LinkedIn and other places where you're going to make yourself known.
Yep.
Thank you, George. And Shawn is the person to follow, so that's great.
Well, thank you. Speaking of which, Debbie, a lot of folks, we have different takes. So people that already tuned into my stuff, Debbie and I, we look at different angles of this. We interface with different groups. We do overlap some, but we have different takes, different influences, different ideas. So Debbie, why don't you tell people how they can check out your materials if they want to check you out, maybe try to see you speak somewhere, et cetera?
Sure. So the best place is just to go to my company's website, symmetryadvisors.net, SYMMETRY advisors, ADVISORS.net. I have a section on there where it specifically talks about, it has resources on blockchain, and under resources, under mortgage resources, there are a lot of articles I've written. There's videos and podcasts on there, so you can click on the videos, podcasts, and see some of those. There's events on there events I'm attending. And then just follow me on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn, I do post quite a bit about what's going on and where I'm going to be.
Fantastic. Thanks, Debbie. Folks, this has been a very helpful. I think you probably pulled some lessons from this, and that's George and mine's mission. So I hope you continue to check out our Influencer of Tomorrow YouTube channel. Also, influenceroftomorrow.com has links for past episodes, upcoming episodes, of things we're working on. So check all of that out. Debbie, big thank you for joining us today and giving some time and getting some more people into the blockchain world, but also sharing your expertise so some other people can potentially benefit and build their futures and their careers.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me today.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Thank you, Debbie.
See you all again soon.
Thanks.